Hi there, welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced and natural wild world.
To recover our natural health and regain our rights and freedoms.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day in Durango, Colorado. It's 54 degrees, going up to 57 with a low of 43 tonight.
And you're Nico DeHaan.
And I'm Nico DeHaan.
And I'm Ellen DeHaan.
That's right. We're out of the rhythm already. My goodness. I'd like to please order our Primal Edge. I've got it sitting right here in front of us. It's just $89 a month to subscribe to a healthy way to start your day. And you can go to the tfnn.com website and subscribe to get your Primal Edge.
And get it delivered to your door once a month.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And the key to the Primal Edge, I mean, it does have lots of micronutrients and vitamins and minerals and all that.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking a lot about that today.
But
So
it also has humic and fulvic acid.
That's right.
Which helps all the good stuff get in the cells.
And all the bad stuff get out of it.
There you go.
Yeah. And we're on Living a Primal Lifestyle channel on YouTube, so please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and please like us too, and that will help our channel grow.
Yeah, we're getting back to the routine.
Yeah, and our channel, I want to mention, is not monetized, and we also post it on Facebook and on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
so we get started here. We're going to cover a lot of the health things today. And all these notes that we're talking about will be in the show notes. All the articles, yeah. Mm-hmm. The first one is how to eat healthier without tracking calories. And this is by lifehacker.com. And states here that eating healthier is a worthy goal in its own right, rather than just a means to an end of weight loss. But if you try to change your eating habits, you likely know how many different kinds of information there is out there, and it's
how many diets there are.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of diets, and it gets kind of confusing.
But there are some things people agree on.
Yeah,
different researchers agree on.
Well, first thing they mention is here. There's several things. One is get in some lean protein, and we're more of the mind that we want the protein to have some fat with it.
Right. But they do mention eggs, and they do mention some. You can, eat the skin on your chicken and that kind of thing to get the fat, the natural meat fat.
Yeah, let me read this part. I like to think of protein as a jock of three macronutrients: fats, carbs, and protein. It's the building block of your muscles, which is right. And foods high in protein tend to be more filling.
Yeah.
And I think that the fat is really what makes you filling. That's what makes you satisfied. Mm-hmm. Maybe not so much filling, but certainly satisfied. And
the natural animal fat.
Yeah, the natural animal fat, because the vegetable fats, the fruit fats, seem to be a little bit not as bioavailable to us. Mm-hmm. So it's harder to get the fat, although there are good fats in there. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and the vegetables and the greens do provide some micronutrients as well.
Yeah, and they do mention doing things like chickpeas, and black beans, and tofu and tempeh and things like that. And we know that from our research and the way we feel about it is that our vegetables, we like them to be going through some kind of a process. Cooking is one process, but the other things that our ancient ancestors really did was sour them, ferment them, distill them, these types of things. And that takes out the stuff that makes it hard to digest.
Well, we've talked about this before on the show, and it comes down to most plants have some kind of toxicity to protect them from being eaten to extinction by the animals. Mm-hmm. And so if you are cooking them, that helps break down that whatever that barrier is.
The cellular
and if you're fermenting them, and there's a little bit of almost like a pre-digestion process.
Well, if you would think about the ruminants, the cows and the goats and things like that, they have 2 or 3 stomachs. Multiple stomachs where they throw the stuff in, let the stuff ferment, and that pre-digestion thing that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we need to do because,
it makes it easier our bodies don't absorb plants directly, like raw plants.
Right.
So there needs to be some
kind of process.
Some process to it and some beginning of the breakdown so that we can get access to the things in the plants that are healthy.
So focus on your fiber is the next thing. Fiber improves satiety and pretty famously normalized bowel movements. There's a lot of articles that contend that you really don't need fiber. There's a lot of people on carnivore type of diets. We lean more towards that, although we use vegetables and things more for seasoning, and we use them in that process of fermenting to help digest the meats also.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. We just incidentally, we were eating having some sour pickle, some dill pickles, and we had carrots.
Raw carrots.
Just for some crunch with we were eating tuna. I think it was tuna fish with an apple in it, kind of thing. And there were a few pieces of carrot left over, and you dropped them into the pickle juice. And I thought, what a good idea. And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, I had a taste of the carrot, and it was absolutely delicious. It had that pickled flavor without being overwhelming, and it was fun.
Another thing on here, it says eat more vegetables. I'm not sure if we follow that. I mean, vegetables are good in its place, but going to just vegetables is probably not that great for you. Vegetables, it says here, are a major source for important nutrients and vitamins to help your entire body function. Yeah, they do have that. It's just hard to access.
Yeah, we just finished discussing that, and it's you need to have protein. You need to have the animal protein that your body can readily access. As opposed to if you strictly vegetable protein.
Well, we know there are many cultures that do vegetables as a majority of their diet. And certainly the Chinese and the Japanese have kind of perfected that. The Asian cultures have perfected that. And we believe that's because their populations grew fast. They ran out of the animals, the large animals, certainly after the Younger Dryas event. A lot of the major big animals were extinct because of those events. And because of that, they
have to eat something.
Yeah, you have to eat something. So if you have a large population and you want to maximize it, you learn how to use these things. And that's the reason all these souring and distilling type of processes.
Kimchi, and there's just a lot of food that can enable you to enjoy your vegetables and be healthy with it and get what you need from it.
No doubt about it. Second part or third part here is go for good fats. The reputation of fat has come a long way, but that doesn't mean it makes it any less confusing, and that's for sure. There are different kinds of fats, and the next article we're going to go into really explains this. So we're going to kind of skip over this.
Well, the only thing I want to say about the fats in this article is there's animal fats, and then there's fats from nuts and from fruit. When I say fruit, like avocado oil.
And even vegetables have some fats in them.
Yeah, but I'm looking at like oil, cooking oil, let's say.
Well, that's a whole different conversation in the sense because cooking oil, now we find them in bottles. So if you're just eating the plant itself in some form, then you're going to get some of the oils from it. But when you take a vegetable or a fruit like avocado or like an olive, and you put it through a process, a lot of the companies now are using the high heat. And of course, we have things like cottonseed oil that was used during the early 1900s. I don't know if they're still using it a lot, but we never ate cotton.
No, it was a lubricant for machinery.
Yeah, and they found out it had no taste. They put it through the FDA, and they said, it's okay, it's good for you, it's an oil. So that's a whole different conversation. The next part is that cut back in sugar, and of course, processed sugar is the mostly highly processed food, and any high processed carbohydrate is going to be basically sugar.
Oh, considering that when you digest a carbohydrate, it breaks down into sugar.
Yeah, immediately, and it's a shock to your system. From an evolutionary standpoint, we've never had those foods.
Well, we had them only in season and for a couple of weeks.
In its natural form, but in the processed form, we never had them until probably the 1900s. And so if you go to the center aisle of all these food stores, that's where you find this stuff. That's what this
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of sugar too. Not just the cane sugar that's highly processed, but there's beet sugar, and fructose, and
so it's worse and worse and worse and worse than processed foods.
And just be minded that there is sugar, a lot of food. And if you're trying to limit your intake of sugar, you should not be eating. Well, I'm also talking about fructose. Eating a lot of fruit. No, just saying if you eat a lot of fruit, you get the fructose from which is a form of sugar.
Other things, get better sleep. Well, of course, that makes a lot of sense. It starts with your mindset and by something to organize your mind.
Yeah, I want to talk about getting better sleep because there was some very good information in this article. It referred to another article as well. And it talked about there are different things to do to make sure that you get a better night's sleep. Number one, have a schedule. Kind of a general bedtime that you go to sleep and this general time that you get up and kind of.
And why does that make sense? It makes sense because we used to get up without light.
Yeah, when the sun went down.
When the sun went down, we used to go to bed, and when the sun came up, naturally we would wake up. Yeah. So that's the natural schedule we have because of work.
Circadian rhythm.
Yeah, and because of work and because of education and things like that, we're forced into another type of schedule.
Right. So even if you have to get up for work, make sure that you get your 7 hours of sleep. Go to bed at the hour. Don't
try to make it regular if you can.
As close as possible.
Yeah, within an hour, I would say.
And that helps. And then the thing that we do, the unwinding, the
shutting off
the lights, and the switching to night mode on if I'm reading.
Turn the TV off maybe an hour before, which we don't always do, but we do a lot of times.
Most of the time we do.
Yeah, I know you do because I go to bed earlier than you do.
Yeah, but also we turn it off when you start your routine for, maybe you'll sit in the massage chair, maybe you'll go through some breathing exercises, maybe you'll just read quietly or look at your lesson plan for the jiu-jitsu or something. But it's a way of winding down and disconnecting and also avoiding the blue light, which is very important because
most of the LEDs are all blue light. Now they have come up with different shades of that, and I don't know if that helps or not. I think it probably does, but we tend to go with the lighter, the old bulbs, the incandescent bulbs.
Yeah, sometimes we have to order them on the internet. We can't even get them.
We can't find them anywhere.
Well, there was one other thing that I wanted to talk about related to sleep, and it's something that both of us do.
Okay.
If your mind is racing, sometimes things are going on in your life that your mind just can't let go of.
Oh, that's for sure.
And you lie down on the bed and your mind is just going. And what we both do, we discovered independently, is if your mind is racing over something, a conversation you have to have with a coworker or your boss or your family member or, just something of that nature, we get up and just write it down. We write down our thoughts. We write down, because what you're doing is composing the conversation in your head over and over and over.
Right. So if you write it down, what that does is kind of shuts it off and said, okay, I've completed the thought, and that helps stop it.
And I don't have to try and remember it because I wrote it down and now I have it.
Yeah.
And then it happened recently and you came back to bed, went right to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a cool thing.
Just kind of empty your mind. It's important. And pay attention. Also, don't drink caffeine an hour before you go to bed.
No, we tend to shut it off around 2:00 in the afternoon, and that seems to work for us. Occasionally, I've had an espresso at 4:00, and it doesn't seem to matter too much because it's just a small espresso. It doesn't really have that much caffeine in it, but a big cup of coffee would.
That's true. Espresso, despite the fact that it's stronger tasting than coffee, has less caffeine.
Well, remember, it's only an ounce or two, too, so that makes a difference.
But also, since we do the adding of MCT oil and sometimes butter to the coffee, that helps smooth out the spike. It doesn't. We don't have the spike from the caffeine,
right? Because the fat tends to override a little bit.
Yeah, it smooths it. It makes it more time releasing.
Bulletproof.
The bulletproof.
So the next article is a link from this other article that why it makes sense to add extra fat to your meal. And it says here now that fat is overcoming its bad reputation. It's becoming trendy to add it to your food, to your drinks for health reasons, whether it's butter in your coffee or other things. And I think this is important to understand the types of fats. Of course, all fat has been vilified for the last 50 or 60 years. That's tending to change now. But the breakdown of fats, first of all, is the saturated fats were once demonized, but now they're earning back some more respect. They are a major component of animal fats. It's also found in butter and cream and lard and bacon and things like that.
Yeah, well, they're talking about the different kinds of fats they have listed here. Saturated fatty acids. That's what we were just talking about, what you find in butter, cream, lard, and bacon. Medium chain fatty acids. That's what's in MCT, stands for medium chain triglycerides.
Right, and comes mainly from coconut oil. It's found in other fruits too.
Mm-hmm. And it may have mild fat burning properties. Now, I have had a sensitivity, a lactose intolerance over the years. So I don't generally add butter to my coffee, but I do add a couple of tablespoons of MCT.
Right.
And it makes it nice and foamy, almost like a latte or something, instead of, I can't put milk in. So, so I use that MCT. And then we got monounsaturated omega-9 fatty acids, which they call them the heart-healthy good fats.
Actually, omega-6 and 9 are inflammatory.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they say that 9 is in olive oil and avocados.
Right. And they're inflammatory if you take a little bit of them. In other words, use them not liberally, but use them occasionally and use them lightly. Then your immune response maybe gets a little boost because now it's a little exposure to inflammatory, and your body goes, "Oh, I better get rid of this."
And also things like, you have to take a look at, when you're using oils, you want to take a look and see. For example, when we cook eggs in the morning, we take the bacon drippings from the Sunday bacon, and then we use the lard to cook the eggs in. My
stomach feels a lot better than if you use olive oil or if you use
olive oil is warned against high heat.
Right.
So you want to take a look at those oils and see, are they for high heat? Are they for medium heat? Are they for low heat?
When you process olive oil or avocado oil into what they call extra virgin, then it's not as susceptible to the heat. So in other words, you can use a little higher heat. You still can't use a high heat like you can with lard.
Right.
But you can use a little bit higher. But remember, now it's a more processed food. So then you've got to kind of weigh that too. So that's why we use it a little bit, but we don't use it a lot.
Well, then we have trans fatty acids.
No, polyunsaturated fats.
Well, but that was the one we were talking about with the omega-3s that are found in fish oils.
Yeah.
And omega-6s, which
are found in seed oils.
Yeah,
and things like corn and canola. And remember, the ratio of these is the important part.
Right.
We want to make them 1-to-1 or maybe 1-to-3.
Now, when you say 1-to-3, you're talking about
1 being the omega-3 and 3 being the others. And 1-to-1 is a real good ratio. If you go up to 1-to-12, where you get real high inflammatory ones, then your body response is not there anymore because it's getting too much.
Well, you want more omega-3 and less omega-6, basically.
You want the ratio to be 1-to-1 to 1-to-3, the 1 being the omega-3s because it's very powerful.
Right.
And it's anti-inflammatory. And the 3s you want at a ratio of 1-to-1 or up to 3, but not much higher. You do want the inflammatory ones because
so you can
get that response from your immune system.
The punch.
Yeah. And then we come to the trans fatty acids, which are the least, it's the artificial version of anything, and anything that's in pastries and canned foods, frostings, things like that.
Yeah, and then, boy, you remember a few years back, it's been a number of years already, that trans fats suddenly burst onto the scene as the worst thing ever, and they were taken out. A lot of foods now have labels that say no trans fats.
Yeah, and they were promoted heavily as the margarine and the cottonseed oil, and this was replacing butter because butter was considered the bad saturated fat that you don't want. And now, of course, we know it's really good for you.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, this article points out that adding fat to a meal helps us absorb some of the vitamins in it. And vitamins are small organic molecules we need in our diet but can't make in our bodies. Our bodies don't produce the vitamins. Right. They have to come from outside. So if you eat a varied diet, a healthy diet, you probably get lots of vitamins. And if you ate super low fat meals, you interfere with your digestive system's ability to get those vitamins out of your food and into your bloodstream, which I thought was very interesting. And it also says that if you were eating, let's see, vitamins A, D, E, and K are all fat soluble. So you need at least a little bit of fat in your meal in order to be able to absorb them.
Yeah, very important.
It is important.
Fat is really good for you.
So using, you can use a salad dressing that has some oils in it or some mayo in it or something that gives you a little bit of fat with your salad. And then eating eggs. The yolk contains, the whole egg is a protein product, but the yolk contains the fat.
That's right. The most important part.
Yeah.
So then let's go to the next article, which is links between coronavirus, nutrition, and the immune system.
Let's see. Got it.
It says here the coronavirus 19 pandemic has focused attention on the role of the immune system with experts and articles urging people to buy supplements or eating particular foods. There's also articles I found that saying, well, food has nothing to do with your immune system at all. So
that doesn't seem to be the case.
Here's how does the immune system work? The immune system is one of the most complex bodily systems made up of a network of cells, molecules, tissues, and organs all working together to protect the cell. And it gets very complex, but I look at it on a cellular level. The cell itself has a membrane that stops the bad stuff coming in and allowing the good stuff to come in. So there's a signaling process that's going on there. And all our cells have it, whether they're inside the body or outside the body. So I think it's important to realize that our immune system are in each cell of our body, whether it's our eyes, our hair, or anything else. Right. It may be more specific in certain areas, but certainly our immune system is our whole body. The first line of defense is our skin. Your
cells, yeah. And all this is leading to the concept of boosting your immune system and supporting your immune system. And it does say that adhering to a healthy diet provides ongoing support to the immune system and may even delay the process of immunosenescence, which of course is the deterioration of your immune system as you grow older. They say older people are more susceptible to catching viruses and flus and so on.
So in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the British Dietary Association recently published a statement. Simply put, you cannot boost your immune system through diet. And no specific food or supplement will prevent you from catching coronavirus. Good hygiene practices is the best way of avoiding the infection.
And yet, there have been quite a number of studies done.
That's nonsense. I mean, first of all, our immune system is the thing that protects us. So from viruses, from everything. So it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, and then this article goes on to say that there are a lot of nutrients involved with the normal functioning of your immune system. Yeah. So that includes, for effective immune function, important nutrients are copper, folate, iron, selenium, zinc, and vitamins A, B6, B12, C, and D.
Exactly.
And those are very important.
And again, if we go back to looking at just the cell and it absorbing things that are good for you and trying to protect itself against bad things from entering, there are signaling processes, and that's why we promote the Primal Edge, the only thing that we really promote. And because it has the humic and fulvic acid in there, this is the signaling. I was reading an article the other day that the Druids back in England in ancient times, going back a couple of thousand years, when somebody had an illness of some kind, they would take dirt from the garden and place it in a cotton sack or something like that, put it underneath their head. So that signaling would start. So our ancient ancestors at different stages knew these things intuitively, that the soil is the key. And just by putting some healthy soil, naturally, you don't want to do it in New York City from But, if you take a healthy soil, this is a benefit to us. This is why kids, when they play in the dirt, get a boost.
And their immune systems are
You're
definitely
right, exactly.
improved. Yes. And that's where the humic and fulvic acid comes from, the soil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the guidance here provided protecting your immune system is be of a healthy weight.
Yeah, because obesity is one of the known
Of
morbidity factors
Right.
that contribute to your susceptibility to disease and also your inability to fight it.
Exactly. Being physically active, of course, having your immune system being shocked by physical activity is good for it.
Mm-hmm.
Eating whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and beans, of course, they have to put that in here because this is their pushing that.
Yeah,
always.
but I think the point of that one is just choose your food, or you eat organically, eat free range beef and chickens and
That's what we say.
and goats and so on is our way of dealing with it. No antibiotics, no hormones added to the food.
Right.
You
So
know,
let's
all
continue
of
with
that.
this list. Is limit fast food, correct? Limit red and processed food, meats. Of course, we like our ribeyes and things like that, and that's red meat, and we think it's really good for it. And we eat a couple of times a week, something like that. So we eat it pretty regularly. Limit sugar, sweetened drinks, of course. Limit your alcohol consumption. Sure, 1 or 2 drinks is probably good for you. Over that, we've learned over decades, it does damage. Don't rely on supplements. I would say rely on supplements that work. I
think in today's world, it is much more difficult. Well, I guess lately I've seen much more of an expansion of availability of organic foods and no non-processed foods and no bug killing stuff, no sprays on them and so on and so on. Within the last 20 years, it was very difficult to get all the nutrients you needed from the food because of the way it was prepared and the way that it was presented.
And the big push for fast food, the big, anything that's advertised pretty much is this packaged food. So, you're right on that.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding your baby if you can, and probably for at least 2 years.
Yeah, well, certainly at the beginning, if you can, because that's where the colostrum comes from. And
that's immediate. And then later on, the benefits there, because this is a whole food. This is what nature has provided for us. And we've gotten more and more away from this type of thing. And I think the tendency now is to say, wait a minute, maybe we're doing it wrong.
Well, I think when you said, you and I were talking about this the other day, and you said, the baby is born with no immunities, basically. It's a clean slate, human being, brand new, doesn't wasn't exposed to anything, doesn't have. So getting the initial boost of the immunities from the mother's milk is very important. And continuing, if you're able to continue the breastfeeding, then it also continues the ability of helping to transfer the immunities from the mother to the child, and give the system a head start, as it were.
A big head start. And I think it's really important. I was lucky. I was born during the war when there wasn't a lot of food available. So my mother breastfed me for over 2 years. So I think that's a real boom. And the more people do that, the better it's going to be. Because if you look at the ingredients and a lot of bases of the baby bottle feeding is soy, and it's certainly not traditional soy.
And grain.
Yeah, and grains. So it says here, in summary, good nutrition supports the body throughout the life course from birth to old age. A balanced diet, including all food groups, supports an effective immune system and may provide protection against infections, cancers, and other diseases.
Yeah.
True enough.
Yeah, and they also talk in here about the fact that smoking does impair your immune system.
Well, there's a lot of evidence for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. The next article, I think, is the antiviral functional foods and exercise lifestyle for the prevention of coronavirus. And this is quite a long article, and it involves an introduction and all these conclusions and things like that. So we'll kind of go over this. I wanted to put this in the show notes so you can read it for yourself. But some of the things is as such that lifestyle approaches can play an essential antiviral long-term preventative role.
Preventative
Role. The antiviral role of nutrition and exercise as a 2 lifestyle preventative pillars has received little research and attention. one of the things, of course, that they're doing is pushing a vaccine, which is a boost to your immune system, supposedly, but it's not a natural one. It's one that's put in there. So, I've read a lot of things about saying, fighting whether the natural immune system is better or getting the shot is better.
I think it's both.
If you're compromised, certainly I think the vaccine is something that you should do. If you're healthy, it's kind of a toss-up. You kind of have to make up your own mind, and that's the thing that is important, I think, in our conversation, because my feeling is if our natural immune system is not the thing that's going to get you over these things, we're pretty much doomed as a species.
Yeah, the human race.
It really doesn't make any sense. So all the things that we read about boosting your immune system through, the exercise, through a great lifestyle, eating the foods that we eat, and maybe doing some supplementation of some kind, I think is really key to it. And certainly we've had no problem whatsoever with our immune system. We feel bad on a day or two, but when was the last time you or I had a flu of any kind?
I think it was 7 years and 4 months ago when I switched jobs and got exposed to new things that I hadn't developed any immunity to. I had a mild case of the flu, and that was it.
And I didn't get that.
No, and you didn't catch it.
Yeah. And I've been doing this show now for 13 years, and all during that time, investigations, I've never had the flu. Occasional sniffle, things like that. Sometimes feeling bad. Mostly, I think, coming from maybe emotional type of things.
Yeah, because feeling out of wellness can be mental, emotional, physical. It can be related to something you ate the night before.
Yep.
It can be related to not getting your usual exercise or the things that you're accustomed to doing to make yourself feel better. There's so many components. Plus, if you tell yourself you don't feel well, you sure as heck don't feel well.
Yeah.
Because your brain believes whatever your body tells you.
And we do ritual things in the morning and in the evening that I think help us boost our mindset, our well-being, breathing exercises. I go cold exposure, which I still do. I still do saunas and far infrared saunas. And all those things help boost the immune system. Getting back to the
art. It talks here about functional foods and nutraceuticals. Nutraceuticals being kind of medications that are natural foods.
Yes.
So, and can be safe and cost-effective strategies to enhance the immune system and provide protection from pathogenic viral infections. So, selected micronutrients have been highlighted in controlling the impact of virulent strain infections, including lower and upper respiratory tract infections, while optimizing a well-functioning immune system.
On the other hand, the role of physical activity and exercise in enhancing the immune system is well established. So these are important things to realize, that the food you intake and the exercise that you do, or the activities, I would say, because exercise to me is something like almost unnatural. It's something that we have to do because we're replacing the hunting and the gathering that we used to do as hunter and gatherers.
I think it's a combination of, it's really a lifestyle.
Right.
And that includes it encompasses all aspects of exercise and food and mindfulness and all of the things that we talk about it's not any one thing.
Right.
It's a combination of all of those things.
And then the other thing is too, exposure to the sun, being outside. With this coronavirus, of course, we were led to believe that it's safer inside in a sense. But you still need to wear a mask. But inside is probably the worst place to be. Outside is the best place to be.
Exposure to the sun, because vitamin D3 is very important to fighting off.
And if you're outside, you're probably more active. You've got different type of temperatures that you're exposed to. You're not in an artificial cocoon, let's say. And of course, around our neighborhood here, walking through the woods and things like that is a wonderful thing. So exercise impacts all immune cells, both innate and adaptive immune systems, particularly elevating the activity of the natural killer cells. These are cells that are there to help you.
To help kill whatever, to help rid the body of toxicity.
Right. Now, there's one
invaders.
sentence in here I want to specify is that severe exercise intensity, whether acute or chronic, can be counterproductive. Productive in terms of the susceptibility to infections. And this makes a lot of sense. Of course, it depends on the type of shape you're in to begin with.
Well, it's very interesting because it says here the studies are showing that the elite endurance athletes have a higher incidence of upper respiratory tract infection.
Yeah. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about this fact that exercise is really good for you. And I said, natural exposure to things is probably good for you because your immune system gets the boost. And the lady says, well, all these endurance athletes, these people, they get the coronavirus. Well, endurance athletes go over the top, even if they
stress the body.
They stress the body. If you're running 26 miles, it's a lot different than running 10 miles. If you're used to running and you run 10 miles, you're doing pretty good. But if you're running 26 miles on a regular basis, in other words, every 3 months or a few times a year,
marathon,
you can really tax your body to overstimulate it. And then because your weakened state is extended, that's when these pathological things can come in.
It's ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing.
And it breaks down the natural systems in your body. They also say that moderate exercise intensity is recommended, especially when you've been doing the lockdown or the social distancing, because you're not doing your usual routine.
Yeah, and for me now at age 77, a lot of times I do supplement other than going to jiu-jitsu. But a lot of times I may go to 2 or 3 weeks of just doing jiu-jitsu because I feel enough. I'm tired enough. I don't want to overdo it. I might do some correcting type of exercise because of, repetitive motion, too much, things like that. But I think you really have to be aware of that there is a fine line a lot of times between overdoing it. Exercise itself is a term we use to supplement our natural movements that we used to have.
Yeah.
So it talks about, in number 3, it talks about the importance of functional foods and preventing different diseases and COVID-19. And I think people should read this. And it talks about different foods, of course. It talks about different fermenting foods and the teas that our ancient ancestors came up with.
And they're talking, going down the article here briefly, is sleep disorders can be ameliorated through maintaining adequate vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is very important.
Right.
And there's a lot of studies that are showing that vitamin D is just getting out in the sunshine is extremely helpful in preventing you from getting any kind of a flu or viral infection.
Yeah. As opposed maybe just popping the vitamin D pills. Because,
and that doesn't hurt either.
No, it doesn't hurt, but you have to use it in conjunction with other vitamins to get the benefit of it. So if you're just popping the vitamin D by itself, you don't have any zinc or anything to go with it, then perhaps you're not getting the benefits from it.
Yeah, it says vitamin D regulates sleep patterns, the circadian rhythm, enhances sleep quality, and it indirectly ameliorates sleep apnea. So that's important. And then they say the best source, of course, is sunshine exposure, but you can get it in tuna and dairy and egg yolks. So, and of course, by taking a supplement, they talk about the dosages for...
Yeah. And of course, going out in the sun for just 10 or 15 minutes is a thing that I do when the sun is out, I'll go out at 2 or 3 o'clock and sit for about 15 minutes, kind of sun gazing, close my eyes, look towards the sun. And I feel it. Yeah, sunbathing.
Yeah, and it's important to be careful when you're going out in the sun. I mean, don't go out and sit at the height of the sun when it's at its hottest and it's most burning, Right. I mean, be sensible about it. Yeah. And then it also says that coffee and caffeine and naturally caffeinated beverages are well known to induce various health benefits and prevent disease. All forms of coffee consumption
are common across the various cultures around the world for centuries.
And there's epidemiological evidence that suggests consuming 2 to 3 cups of coffee daily is associated with reduced incidence of metabolic disease, which including that would be diabetes or any of these other diseases. So.
Now, the conclusions and recommendations: exercise and physical activity enhance the immune system and reduce susceptibility to infections, especially respiratory infections, including COVID-19. Moderate, intense exercise can be adopted by a large population, including high-risk groups with
non-communicable diseases, such as diabetes and cardiovascular.
Yeah, functional foods may provide a further effective, diverse antiviral approach and can have a joint prevention of both
the non-communicable and the communicable disease.
Exactly. Dietary intake of foods rich in vitamins and minerals can be increased to provide the immune boost, especially in individuals with deficiency in these micronutrients.
Yeah, and then they also talk about probiotics and
omega-3 from fish.
Omega-3.
Peptides from protein from fish and chicken and olive oil. They don't mention cows and pigs and things like that, but of course
we do.
Yeah, we do. That's for sure. So the next article really takes us to the humic and fulvic acids that are in our Primal Edge. And this is a nonprofit scientific organization of clinical education, which represents the Institute for Functional Medicine. They published a comprehensive study of the medical research on humic acid's antiviral properties. And after compiling and reviewing hundreds of studies, they stated humic acid may work for most, if not all, viral infections. It's important to realize that these natural things that are in the soil is what completes the life cycle. You know, the cow eating the grass, we eating the cow, or the deer, or the antelope. This is really important to understand, that this is what makes us healthy. We're so disconnected from the soil these days. We don't live on the ground anymore. We live on slabs of cement or wood. And so we're not as connected.
We don't walk barefoot through the woods.
That's right.
Because you'll end up with something in your foot that...
Well, remember that the foot is adaptable. So if
I know,
we did
but
it on a regular, it hurts now, because we, as a kid, we stopped. They put shoes on us. But there's many, many cultures and many areas of the world, even in cold climates. I've read articles of kids going to school in bare feet because they were so poor, but they never got sick. You know, so even in the snow, we're adapted animals. And we can really thrive in many, many different parts of the world with a lot less protection than we have. Yeah, extreme conditions.
Well, we had started kind of our conversation today talking about humic and fulvic acid in the Primal Edge. So just to get a little bit more in detail to conclude, this article is very interesting because it does have some good explanations in it. And it talks about all viruses operate in the same way. They invade a body's living cells and they hijack the cell's machinery to reproduce themselves at exponential rates. Then they take over the body with millions of these viral cells, and they can cause disease and death. Viruses are not technically alive like bacteria, so you can't kill them with an antibacterial.
You have to stop them from entering the cell.
You have to stop them from reproducing and entering the cell.
Yeah. And remember that little cell that we talked about in the beginning with that membrane. What's that membrane made out of? It's made out of fat. There's a fatty deposit that goes around the cell that protects it. So the last 50 years of demonizing fats, even good fats, and particularly pushing the oils in the bottles, is detrimental to us. So, stop using those things and go back to the natural fats that we were all brought up on. And if you're just doing vegetables and fruits and things like that, find ways of having them enter your body in a safe manner so they can use them by fermenting them and by doing different processes. We watch podcasts of people who are living out in the woods that are vegetarians, or mainly vegetarians, and maybe some fish and shellfish, but they're using these processes, and that's what makes them healthy. Yeah, they set it in jars and putting out in the sun, and it's just the way to go.
It's not for everybody. Let's face it.
But
most of us are not going to be bottling up stuff and putting it out in the sun.
No, certainly we don't. We do it on a limited basis.
And we also look for foods that are already fermented and sauerkraut and that kind.
But if you're using the processed foods and the oils, those are the worst things you can do. You got to stop that immediately. The vegetable oils, first of all, are not made of vegetables. They're either made of a fruit, which like olive
or a
oil,
seed.
or they're seed oils,
Seed oil.
or they're a cottonseed oil, which is
Well,
even
that's a
worse. It's
seed.
not. Yeah, it's a seed, but it's not. You don't eat
Yeah.
cotton seeds.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of the oils is that it's made from they're byproducts of something else that somebody said, oh, hey, we can sell these, and it doesn't have any. It may have an antithetical response in the body, so you don't want to have it in your body.
Well, not only that, the seeds don't want to be eaten.
Well, that's what I said. Was talking about the toxicity of the seeds.
The toxicity is in there, and they don't take it out. In fact, they use histamines and all kinds of different chemicals to extract them under high pressure and heat, which destroys them anyway. So
yeah, well, and I think the important thing, just to get back for a minute to humic and fulvic acid, is apparently the viruses really like humic and fulvic acid at the molecular level, so they bind with it, and of course that means that they get excreted from the system, from the body, and they don't get into the cells.
Yeah.
So that to me was I knew that basically how it worked, but I found this very interesting. And the question then is, can either one of those acids be effective in fighting coronavirus, for example, or flu, or any of these viruses? And the point is, this is a brand new thing. It's really been only a year and a half or so, and the studies aren't finished, and we don't have conclusive evidence of one thing or another. But they do say that is it safe to try fulvic and humic acid? And they say absolutely. Fulvic acid is 100% natural and organic, is derived from plant matter, which has been naturally composted over millions of years. It's in the soil. And often it's called a miracle molecule. We had talked about that. Fulvic acid has micronutrients and minerals that the body needs to maintain health and has nothing else.
Yep.
So there's no extra. And then fulvic acid also has been shown to have antiviral properties. So there's really no reason not to take it. It couldn't hurt.
Right, and you can find fulvic acid and humic acid into a lot of places. We recommend taking the Primal Edge mainly because, it's our product. We like it.
Yeah, we like it.
And it has all the other vitamins and minerals in it. And it's in a liquid form. It's very easy to taste, to take. It doesn't taste bad.
One shot.
It's just one shot in the morning.
It's liquid.
It's good.
It tastes a little fruity.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to in with the show notes at the end of the show notes, so you can get this from tfnn.com. Now, that's our show for today. We're running at about 47 minutes, so that's about it. We don't want to bore you with a really
your mind
lengthy...
can only absorb what your rear end can endure. So.
But we're really glad to be back on the air, and we're going to be on vacation for a couple of weeks. So for the next 2 weeks, there will not be a show. But after that, we're going to have a show pretty much weekly. And we'll try to keep you informed of what we're doing health-wise, how we're doing health-wise, and how to live just a happy and fulfilling life. Yeah, that's what we're all about.
Yeah, and please hit the like button, subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. We've only got a few subscribers.
Hit notifications. We're trying to build the channel. Again, we don't monetize. We don't get anything out of it, but we'd like to be able to reach as many people as we can.
Yeah, and what we get out of it really is talking about this so we can be in the fold and do the research, and so we can stay healthy. We're in our 70s now, and we think life is kind of just beginning for us because we're in a good place right now. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you on the next show.
Be safe.